Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And my guest for the third time on this show is one of my oldest friends, Kevin. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Kevin's one of my oldest friends, but one of the newest members of the movie club. So it's been a fun time chatting movies once a month. And this time we get to learn all from Kevin's perspective here. And let's get started with a fun one. I always think about this a lot because, like, I will occasionally just take a day off to do a movie marathon just because, like, I need it. But, Kevin, if you had one whole day to have a movie marathon, what would be the theme of your marathon?
So the theme of my movie marathon would be a playlist of double features of my choosing.
Okay.
So you could do, I thought about this a little bit. You could do like sequels. I was thinking Alien and Aliens, T1,
Nice.
T2, that type of thing. But I had a couple doubles that I wrote up. If I had a whole day to set aside, I'd probably include those. I might do I think Jaws and Jurassic Park would be a good double feature,
Nice.
for
Mhm.
example. They just seem like they would go together. So that type of thing. Point Break and Speed was another one I thought of.
Nice.
The
Gotta get my
Thing and The
Keanu.
Mist. Yeah.
Oh, what was the last one, Kevin?
Oh, I would also do The Thing and The Mist. I
Oh,
think that'd be a good
nice.
double.
We just
Just
can't
double
end on the
features.
mist. We don't want to end on
Right.
that kind of energy.
Yeah, you can't end on that one.
That's pretty great marathon. I'm down.
Yeah. Oh, also, The Mummy and Predator.
Nice.
I think those would go together too.
When I imagine Predator, like the perfect 1987 double feature is Predator and RoboCop. Because
Yeah.
I just imagine like just infinite amount of violence and super one-liners. Like I can't. There's not a limit on the amount of times that I could hear Dylan, you son of a bitch. What are you gonna do? What's the CIA having you pushing too many pencils? Or I'm a sexual tyrannosaur. Where it's like,
Bunch
Blaine,
of great
you're
lines in that
bleeding.
movie. Right. It's chock full
So many of them. Blaine, you're bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed.
of
Just
them.
like, and they're all within the first half of the movie, and then they all get slaughtered. So there you go.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Stuff. Now, Kevin, just imagine you had a friend who had never watched a movie before. What's the first movie you're going to show them?
I would have to go with The Godfather. If we're literally talking someone who's never seen a movie before in their life, I think that would be a great introduction. It's got the full package, right?
Yep.
It's got everything you could want in a story. It's great period piece. It's just perfect. I think that's
That
what I'd go with.
it has the story, the filmmaking, the music, the acting, the story. You sound like my grandpa, Kevin.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat. Yeah.
The first movie he made me watch was The Godfather.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
and you
There's a
met my
precedent.
and you
Yeah.
met my grandpa too. So, oh man, that is a great pick. It
uh,
is arguably the greatest film of all time. So,
I
might
would
as well
agree.
start there.
It's up there.
Now, I know a lot of people complain about the amount of sequels that we get, but sometimes they're worthwhile. What's one film you wish would get a sequel?
So I am going to go with Spider-Man 3. And I think right now it's more possible than ever.
Yes.
I haven't seen the latest Spider-Verse movie, but we're already getting into multiverses. I know
Yep.
DC's doing a multiverse, Marvel's doing a multiverse, non-superhero movies are doing multiverses now, so
Mhm.
it could work. You could bring back a series for no reason. Why not?
And you know what studio would do that in a heartbeat? Sony.
Right.
Because they're just
I
desperate.
don't know if that would ever happen, but or if everybody involved would want to, but if it
You know
happened, that'd
what?
be sweet.
I feel like Toby Maguire, I feel like would be down. I think Sam Raimi would be down. And as long as we get that reveal that was supposed to be in Spider-Man 4, that Bruce Campbell was Mysterio the whole time. Because apparently that was like the opening scene of his Spider-Man 4 was Spider-Man capturing Mysterio, and it was Bruce Campbell. Oh my god.
I'm there for it.
That would make me so happy.
Make him
It
the
was
villain.
supposed to have John Malkovich's Vulture in it. So like he seems much more of like the high intellectual kind of Vulture instead of what we got with like the blue collar Michael Keaton. I'm gonna scare the shit out of you, Vulture.
Right.
So I would be so down for Spider-Man 4 at this point.
And they were supposed to have Dr. Connors as the lizard.
Yeah. That you know what? That's probably one of the most unfortunate teases that just never got realized in a movie series.
You just had the one armed professor, and that's it. That was his
Yep.
role.
It's just like he was there for 3 movies. Never
Right.
got it. But wouldn't want him to be squeezed in any of the ones before. So there you
What could
go.
have been.
Now, Kevin, what's a film from your childhood that you have not watched in years that you would most want to go back and rewatch?
There's probably a lot I could pick from. There's a lot of Disney movies I haven't seen. I was
Mm,
thinking maybe like Bambi or something like that, but I'm gonna have to go with The Land Before Time.
nice.
Uh, I used to watch that a lot as a kid. I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Mhm.
I'm wondering how that holds up. I'd be most interested to check that one out, I'd say.
I'm sure it'll still emotionally devastate anybody.
Oh yeah.
Just watch his mom die. Just, yep, there you
I can still
go.
picture it. So
I'm
if
pretty
it broke
sure
me when I was 4 years old, it'll break me again now.
I had the first four of them and watched them all the time as a kid. Apparently you could get the 13 movie set for
There's
pretty cheap.
13 of them now. Okay.
My goal someday is to get that set
Yeah.
and actually watch all of them.
I
So,
had all the VHSs up to whatever point when I was a kid.
yeah,
They already had a bunch of them then. There were already like at least 4 or 5, I want to say.
so many,
Right.
so
And
many
they
of
were
them.
all musicals. All the sequels were musicals. It was a little weird,
There
but
was
I,
one of
I, I
them that I
ate them
watched
up.
a lot, and I can't remember which. I felt like it was the fourth one or something, but I would have to go back and check. I definitely watched that one a lot. Now, before we started recording, I was talking about I'm going to be doing some traveling, which I don't do very often. I'm a hobbit. I don't like leaving my hobbit hole. But Kevin, if you could travel to any place in a movie, where are you going?
So I would, my first instinct is to say Hobbiton. Speaking of hobbits,
Yep.
however, when I think about it, that's a little more attainable than a lot of other movie destinations because it's filmed in a real spot.
You could just go to New Zealand.
You can just go to New Zealand and see it. So if I'm talking about someplace impossible that I would like to visit that was in a movie, I'd probably go with the planet Coruscant from the Star Wars movies. I think that'd
Like
be
fancy.
interesting. You could definitely run around that planet, find a lot to do. Maybe buy a black market lightsaber, buy some death sticks,
You don't want to sell me Death Sticks. I don't
get
want to
into
sell
some
you Death
trouble,
Sticks.
right? On an
Well,
alien planet.
well, that's the thing. You can hang out in the really swanky, like Senate area, or you can hang out in that really, really creepy place that Count Dooku flies to meet up with Darth Sidious at the end of Attack of the Clones, where it's just like, my
Yeah.
God, what bad side of town is this?
Or just one of those bars, there'd be plenty to do there. I think that would be a great place to visit.
It would be a really very interesting place with plenty of places to go hang out. So that's a
You get
good
the
one.
full experience of all the Star Wars tech and everything. So
Exactly.
that'd be my pick.
I feel like I would want to go to the Jedi Temple the most out of anywhere there. I just feel like that would be really cool.
Right.
But kind of would wish it would be pre Revenge of the Sith because
Yeah.
like
The
after that it's a
temple, oh, it'd be burnt down.
yeah.
That'd
Which
be
it,
the first stop. And then once I get that tourism stuff out of the way, I'd visit, really get a feel for the city.
exactly. It's interesting because apparently Colin Trevorrow's original script for Rise of Skywalker had um you had like Adam Driver going to Coruscant, and apparently there's these giant like force wolves and stuff like that on the planet. I'm just like, dude, crazy. I would have loved to see that.
Okay.
But no, Kylo Ren had a baby face turn and died. So there you go.
That's what happens.
Spoiler alert for like the most recent of one of the biggest movie franchises out there. So I feel like if you wanted to watch Rise of Skywalker, you probably went to go see it already. Um, Now it's funny because you referenced my answer to this question, which is what's a movie you watched too young, which is The Godfather. But Kevin, what's yours?
So, oh man, there's probably a string of them, and it's hard to pick. So, this is also hard to say because I don't really feel like I was exposed to anything way too early necessarily, for myself at least. But you could make an argument that I watched a lot of R-rated movies a little too young.
Mhm.
When I was 11, I watched The Terminator for the first time, and
Nice.
technically that's outside the range, right? It's not really made for 11-year-olds, but
No.
that was the movie that broke the ice for me.
Mhm.
I remember I snuck that tape out and I watched it. And then when my mom found out, she got upset. And she goes, "Well, okay, I guess you can watch R-rated movies now if you could handle that." And then I just that I was like, "All right, great." And I started taking them all in, and yeah, I watched a lot of R-rated movies that summer when I was 11.
Your
I,
plan worked, Kevin.
yeah,
Your
so you
plan worked.
could go with that. Possibly The Matrix.
Mhm.
I also watched the first two Punisher movies around that time,
Nice.
so pretty brutal. You know, the Dolph Lundgren
The
one,
Dolph
and
Lundgren
then
one.
the other one.
Thomas Jane.
Right,
Also,
all bloody movies.
yes. Pour one out for now the late Ray Stevenson, who also was
Oh
the
yeah.
Punisher.
Oh man, I forgot.
Can't believe he passed away. Punisher Warzone, that was brutal.
That
Like
was brutal.
that was like they went there in terms of the Punisher. I'm like, holy crap.
I enjoyed that one too. I didn't see
Yeah.
that one for a little while after though, but
I feel like I need to rewatch that because I feel like when I watched it, I didn't appreciate it, and I feel like would have a much better appreciation for that movie now as
I
an
agree.
adult.
I still would say it's not the best movie, but out of all of them, it might be the weakest in terms of how it was made. But it was a blast.
And if you watch the Thomas Jane one, gotta watch that director's cut.
Oh yeah, I prefer that one too.
That
It,
and
it is a little
Daredevil.
bit that's true. More so for Daredevil than Punisher, I'd say. The Punisher had some weird sections added in, I'd say,
Mm.
for the extended cut. It didn't necessarily have to be there, but there were cool plot points.
It's just so weird to think that John Travolta was a mob boss villain in a Punisher movie, but it happened.
It happened. It worked for what it was.
Now,
Little goofy.
Kevin, what film experience do you feel like legitimately made an impact on your life?
So this is also a tough one because I don't know necessarily, but if I had to pick one, I would go with either. I'd probably go with Rocky if I had to pick one. I don't know. It's told really well,
Uh-huh.
and I guess it was one of the first movies I saw that made me think about things uh, that a movie was presenting to me in a certain way and evaluate them against my own life and that sort of thing. Like, oh, you got to keep on punching.
Absolutely. And us being South Jersey kids, Rocky means a lot.
It also feels a little local. That's true.
If you're from Philadelphia or Southern New Jersey, Rocky's a big deal. And especially if you're an Italian American from South Jersey,
Oh,
or
there you go. Right.
and then Rocky Balboa is basically like the world's most important Italian. So, which is why my plan, if I was in charge of making holidays, I would totally change Columbus Day to Rocky Balboa Day.
I'd be on board for that.
And you know what? The city of Philadelphia would probably be all about it.
I'd rather have a fictional boxer than a real life genocider.
So, and for the record, we didn't, the Italians did not send him here. That was the Portuguese. So
That's true.
it's their fault. But Rocky, I feel like Rocky's one of those kinds of movies that when you watch that for the first time, it really helps you like believe anything is possible
Yeah,
because it's just so inspiring.
I think it's just a good message overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we all love Rocky. Now, Kevin, what movie would you like to see turned into a TV series?
Hmm. So my pick for this would have to be Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World.
Very
And
interesting pick.
have you seen that movie?
Yes.
And so it's based on like a book series, right? And I haven't
Yeah.
read the books, but just because of that fact alone, it would probably make for a great TV series. You could stretch that out. I know
So,
there's multiple books, and that movie is only like one or two of them, I think, condensed into
yeah,
one
I think
story.
they pull elements from a couple different ones.
I never
It,
read the books.
it's very interesting because I'm going to shamelessly plug my favorite podcast, The Cinephiles, and they did a two-part episode on Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. And Steve Morris, one of the two hosts, is like a diehard fan of the books. And from what it sounds like, they're so dense and flowing. Like a lot of them don't have like a very defined beginning end, like a traditional narrative. So it makes so much sense that it would fit as a TV show.
Right. Okay.
And getting on there. So that's actually a really good pick. And I would assume at this point you'd probably recast because
Yeah, you would have to, right? It's a 20-year-old movie now.
I don't know if Russell Crowe's going to be swaggering along on a ship at this point. He'd still do it, and he still thinks he
Oh,
could do it
I'd
too.
still watch it if they made a sequel with him or something, but
Absolutely, him and Paul Bettany are the two main characters. But yeah, based off of that episode of the Cinephiles, it made me actually want to read these books and see more movies. But apparently, just didn't make enough money. And you know what? Movies filmed on water are really expensive.
I can imagine. I can imagine so. Those
I'm
books
pretty
are on my list to read.
I'm pretty sure that On Stranger Tides is still like the highest budgeted movie ever
Huh?
because it costs over $300 million
That's crazy.
to make some of those pirates movies because it's really tough filming on water. Got to make all those boats and stuff because a lot of that was practical.
Yeah.
So, but now, Kevin, what's your favorite film romance?
So I'm not a big romance guy
Hmm.
when it comes to movies, but I would go with The Princess Bride. It's you can't go wrong with that. Uh, you know, it's
It's a
got
classic.
everything you need in a romance. They trust each other and they have each other's backs.
As you wish.
Right. And it's told like a fairy tale romance. So that it's very
Grandpa,
digestible.
is this one of those kissing butts? Shut up and let me read
Yeah,
the book. I do love Wesley and Buttercup. And there's very few moments in movies as romantic as when she pushes him down the hill and he's screaming as you wish. And she's like, my Wesley. And then she yeets herself the hill after him.
it's a delightful romance movie. And if I
And
could, I'd go back in time and have Peter Falk narrate a bunch of other movies, including The Notebook.
oh my God. Oh man, he was so great in that. Just so great. Him and Fred Savage was such a great choice.
Dynamic duo.
There we go. Now, Kevin, theoretically, you get hired to teach a film class. What is going to be your film curriculum?
So films I would include in my curriculum. So I came up with 10.
Okay.
Uh, I haven't seen all the movies,
Hey,
let alone a lot of the
you do your
movies.
prep beforehand, so
Right. I would do my prep beforehand. So I probably mix the list up a little bit, change it
Mhm.
up a little bit. I picked 10 movies, all movies that I've already seen before, and movies that I would feel comfortable including in a class.
Okay,
Things that I think have something to add. So here are my picks. They're all from the 20th century.
okay,
So from 1902, A Trip to the Moon.
nice.
You got to include that in a film class.
Hmm.
I would include The Maltese Falcon.
Get
Uh,
you Humphrey Bogart.
yeah, Gojira from 1954. That's
Yes.
the original Japanese version.
Kevin, you're just gonna teach a whole Godzilla class.
I could do
Be
that
all the
too.
films.
Right. I could teach a whole Godzilla class. I'd go with 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Very nice.
The Godfather,
Mhm.
Jaws, Rocky, Schindler's List, Goodwill Hunting, and The Matrix.
I'm taking your class, Kevin.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what's really important is anytime you come back onto this show moving forward, how I've been doing this is I'm going to interview you about your film curriculum. So next time you're on, we're going to start things off with Trip to the Moon.
Okay, all
It
right,
might not be the longest conversation, seeing as it's 10 minutes, but it'll be
right.
a fruitful one.
Very short movie,
Yep.
but you can
But
also speed up the reel back in the day. You can make it faster.
yep, there you go. Absolutely. I'm definitely taking that class. It has a nice, interesting variety of films and also like really impactful films. So
You got to include some of the blockbusters, so had to
yeah,
include The Matrix.
yeah,
It's worthy though.
you gotta keep those 18, 19-year olds paying attention. I know. I teach statistics. Uh now, Kevin, how I always wrap up this show is I let my guest ask me a question. So
Okay.
what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
All right, Shane. I've got one for you.
Okay.
If you were given the opportunity to write and direct a a remake of one movie that came out in the 1980s, what movie would that be?
Ooh, the 1980s. See, I
Has
have
to
an
be from
answer
that
for the.
decade.
Oh, I'm trying to think of something that I thought had a really cool concept, but didn't work out 100% well. The first thing that pops in my head, I want to make a remake, a live. Oh God, I'm making a live action Disney remake of the Black Cauldron,
Oh,
and
nice. Okay.
this is not for kids.
No.
Right off the
Dark
bat,
remake.
this is gonna be a dark movie.
Hmm.
I feel like because like that's the movie that gets so much of the it almost torpedoed Disney and it was too dark. I'm like, yeah, for kids, but not for us. Uh, but I think that would be a really interesting kind of dark fantasy to bring to life. Yeah, that right off the top of my head. Because like there's definitely a lot of like 80s movies that have really awesome concepts and probably have aged poorly.
That's one of the
Probably.
reasons I picked that decade specifically.
Yeah, because like there's a ton of fantasy films, like something like Lady Hawk seemed like an interesting idea, and just like sometimes it just didn't age.
Unless you were James Cameron, a lot of movies didn't really have the budget for a lot of their concepts.
Very true. Look at George Miller. He made The Road Warrior. And then
Right.
one day, Warner Brothers gave him $150 million.
There you go.
And then he made what his true vision was. And we love it because now we have Fury Road. Um,
One of the things that spawned the question, actually.
oh, very nice. Yeah,
Right.
definitely. I'm gonna remake the Black Cauldron, and I want to see how that goes.
Another movie I haven't seen since I was a kid. I
I
don't
don't.
remember The Black Cauldron.
The thing is, I don't think I've actually watched it.
I know I have. I just don't remember it. I
So
have no memory of it.
that's one thing I have to go back and actually watch first before I start remaking it.
Right.
But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and chatting some movies.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.